Well, we've been on a roll here. Some fun numbers to look at. In the past 2 years, we have welcomed 56 new members into our church. And just for the sake of comparison, in the previous 10 years, in total, we welcomed 18 new members. So there's a difference. I think even more importantly, though, there's a fullness to our experiences in worship together. A fullness in which we can encounter life in its fullness, and we can laugh together and cry together and sing together and wonder together. And there is also quite literally a sense of fullness here. Another comparison. Our worship attendance averages are now more than double what they were before the pandemic. And I can't think of any other churches that have statistics like that unless it's a church that is telling people that they're going to go to hell if they don't come to church. And we don't believe that. So that's a good statistic. And, when I talk to other pastors and they talk about their worship attendance numbers, they always talk about numbers before the pandemic because it has been so hard to get back to those levels. But we're twice that level now. Other good things. We had a very successful endowment fundraiser this spring. Due to your generosity, we're going to be able to pull from the endowment to fix up our building. Mary Sue is going to talk about that next Sunday. At the council meeting a couple weeks ago, Hank joked, I think, that we needed to start thinking about doing a sanctuary renovation. I think it was a joke, I'm not sure. But it's certainly better to joke about building things than demolishing things. So I think that the primary purpose of worship is self-congratulation, and that the secondary purpose of worship is to praise God. So now that we got all the self-congratulation out of the way, we can listen and see if God has anything to say to us today. So what did we just read from? Ecclesiastes 2. I wasn't listening very closely, Lisa. I was just thinking about how great we were. So let's see what Lisa just read. Quote, "We hated all our toil in which we had toiled under the sun, seeing that we must leave it to those who come after us. And who knows whether they will be wise or foolish, yet they will be master of all for which we have toiled and used our wisdom. This is also vanity. So we turned and gave up our hearts to despair concerning all the toils of our labors under the sun, because sometimes one who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave it all to be enjoyed by another who did not toil for it. This is also vanity and a great evil. What do mortals get from all the toil and strain with which they toil under the sun? For all their days are full of pain, and their work is a vexation. Even at night their minds do not rest. This also is vanity." Well, no wonder I wasn't paying attention. A braver pastor, I think, would have brought up this last Sunday. On that celebratory 170th anniversary, we had all the pomp and circumstances. The model of our old church was up there. It was such a fun Sunday to look back, to look forward. But Ecclesiastes says, enough with all the hoopla, enough celebrating. As easily as good things happen, so easily may they go away. So we've been on a good run for 2 years. But it could all go away so easily. Just as easily as a new person walks into our church and we welcome them and we greet them and they return the next Sunday and then another Sunday and then they come forward and become a member here. It wouldn't be that hard for those people to just walk back to their cars, go on vacation, a couple months pass, don't come back. It's really easy to quit things. The worst job I ever had lasted for 6 months. And from my first day there, I hated it and was looking for other work. "Hi, have you received it?" "No, we're not hiring." "I was wondering, have you "No, we picked someone else." On and on and on it went. I couldn't find another job. Finally, when someone told me that they would maybe hire me, that was enough. I wrote my letter of resignation, brought it into the office, gave it to my boss. He was very nice. He said, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I said, "I'm sure." And he said, Jonathan, how long will it take you to finish up all those big projects you've been working on? I said, I think it'll take me about 15 minutes to finish up what I've been working on. So I went back to my desk and closed Spotify, closed ESPN.com, wiped away the crumbs from that morning's breakfast, got my extra shoes from the closet, turned in my badge, jumped on the bus, and that was it. I quit. It was that easy. Why didn't I do this earlier, I thought? It can be easy to quit things or turn things around. We've had so much good progress in our 2 years here, but I bet we could come up with a plan to undo it all. I don't even think we need to come up with a plan. You all could just quit showing up here, or you could keep coming, but be really mean to each other. Nitpick, criticize, refuse to trust anyone, disregard the progress we've made. Just shake your head a lot and say, I don't like it. I don't like it. We could do this, and we could ruin all this. The writer of Ecclesiastes knows that we could do it. And even if we didn't do it, maybe it'll be the people who come after us who do it. Maybe it'll be the next crop of new members, or the next council, or the next moderator, or the next music director, or the next pastor. Maybe it'll be these people who undo all our progress. But I'm being kind of presumptuous. What if it is, in fact, we who are bungling what was given to us? Maybe not what was given to us in the past couple decades, but was given to us 50 years ago or 100 years ago. What if we are in the inheritors and the fools that the writer of Ecclesiastes describes this morning? Every day I'm at home and I look around my house and I admire how it looks. I have a pretty house. It's well decorated. It has nice furniture. And the reason I have a pretty house is because I have my own private, personal interior designer. She doesn't work for anyone else. She spends all her time online looking for overlooked items, going to estate sales, trying to find things that other people have missed. Last week, she was undercover at the Wayzata Community Church rummage sale, volunteering there so that she could get first dibs on whatever was sold. She told me it was all a bust. I said, that's just fine. You only volunteered there for about 40 hours. In the spring, she was in Europe, not for Spring Fashion Week, but for the second time in her 80-year life. And I was here alone, and I saw a beautiful piece of furniture. But I couldn't move on it because I wasn't sure if I would have her support. And she just so happens to be married to a man who's very good at tying things down in the back of his pickup truck and delivering it wherever I say. The reason my home looks nice is because my parents do all the work. I worry that when they're gone, my house and maybe my life will kind of fall into disrepair. And it probably will, to some extent. I think that if all of us looked back on our lives, we would be able to spot things that we have inherited and bungled. Maybe a property, maybe an investment, maybe a moral compass, maybe a faith tradition. Who knows? And the writer of Ecclesiastes is guilty of this too, even though he's quick to identify his own wisdom and the foolishness of other people. Tradition has linked this to Solomon, the son of David, wise Solomon. And it's difficult to determine biblical authorship, but let's just go with that and connect this book to Solomon. Solomon, who inherited so much from his father and built that great kingdom, and in doing so, ground the faces of the poor into the dirt, and only exacerbated the difference between rich and poor, and who forgot the words, "Hear, O Israel, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself." Throughout the book of Ecclesiastes, there is a sharp distinction between those who are wise and those who are fools, but I think all of us know that throughout a lifetime, we are both wise and foolish. Sometimes we build things up, sometimes we destroy them. And the capriciousness of it all, the randomness, the unpredictability, it's enough to make you just think that life is meaningless. This wasn't a prank pulled by a disenchanted parishioner to describe the pastor or my preaching. This is the word vanity and all the other possible translations that we could use for vanity in this text. All is vanity, the writer says over and over again, but the writer could also be saying all is absurdity, all is meaninglessness, all is incongruity, all is emptiness, all is uselessness. I don't think the writer of Ecclesiastes ever spent a night at home drunk in front of the blur of a smartphone, shopping for who knows what, researching who knows what. Now it's time for bed? Where is the night gone? Where is my life going? I don't think the writer of Ecclesiastes ever did this, but the writer of Ecclesiastes knows what this feels like. If you ever feel like the formulas of faith can be so tidy, da 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 da, do this and this and this so this. If that just doesn't seem to measure up to the massiveness of your life, how complicated it is, well, then you've come to the right place. Because the Bible knows how vexing your life is. Sometimes we have numbers to point to and graphs to pull out to show how well things are going, and sometimes we wake up with a dull headache and our feet are in concrete blocks and we think, what is the point of anything? So what would we have done last week, that celebration, if during the prayers, the writer of Ecclesiastes had gotten hold of the mic and announced, all Debbie Downer, well, you've made it 170 years and things look good, but I just want you to know that you're all going to die and someday this church will die too. How would we have handled that if we heard that? Or what do you do if you're finally enjoying life, but you can hear the writer of Ecclesiastes on your shoulder telling you, this won't last, this won't last, this won't last? Or what do you do if things are falling apart and you're sprawled out on your couch and the writer of Ecclesiastes is still on your shoulder snickering, I told you so. I told you this would happen. My uncle was a parish pastor for 40 years. His last call was at a large congregation in a medium-sized town, and my uncle was a good pastor. He's a great man. And things started off going really well there. Multiple services, new members, big crowds, lots of momentum. But then a trickle of discord turned into a stream of dissent, turned into a waterfall of resentment. And they ran him out. I think the good people of the congregation got together and made him a plaque for his years of service. That was it. 15 years ago or so, and now that church is about ready to board up its doors. I was with my uncle a couple weeks ago. He's in his early 80s, and we were reflecting on life. And I asked him, how do you think back on your ministry there? Given how it ended, given what's happened to that church now. And he said, I think we are called to be the presence of God in the present, to minister to particular people at particular times. He may as well have been quoting whatever resolution or answer we get from Ecclesiastes. There's nothing better for mortals than to eat or drink or find enjoyment in their toil. This too is from the hand of God. There's a story connected to the great church reformer Martin Luther. Apparently one time Luther was asked, if you knew that tomorrow the world was going to end, what would you do today? They asked this question 500 years ago. We still ask it now. Luther was asked this question, and he said, if I knew the world was going to end tomorrow, today I would plant an apple tree. There's nothing better for mortals than to eat and drink and find enjoyment in their toil. This too is from the hand of God. So Ecclesiastes knows how vexing your life is. The Bible knows that sometimes life goes well and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we welcome new members and we're excited about what the future may bring. And sometimes people quit coming to church and we have to call special meetings because their roof is leaking. You've seen all this. Life includes all of this. It might await us. We never know. We don't know. Who knows how any of this will end? But God will be with you. God will be with us. Once upon a time, Jesus preached a sermon on a mountain. Everybody turned out for it. They came up to that mountain to listen to him. And Jesus could see the aches in their bones, the weariness on their faces. It looked like they had spent all night reading the book of Ecclesiastes on their smartphones. And Jesus said, consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And then maybe Jesus was winking at Solomon in the book of Ecclesiastes, because he said, even Solomon in all his glory, with his silk robes and his leather camel sandals, his gold rings, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these. So if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, how much more does God clothe you, you of little faith? How much more does God clothe you? Consider the lilies. Amen.